When strange legal letters start arriving from America, Betty chucks them away in the belief they are threatening in some way. But she's wrong. Soon, Kieron and Dave must part ways, and tragedy is on the horizon. Chapter 13. A Letter from America. When the first legal letter from New York arrived, I can only assume Betty trashed it. I'm led to believe that first correspondence was followed by a few other similar letters. She simply ignored them. What was going through her mind? Betty detested anything official. She thought that dealing with lawyers was beyond her scope, and that it was all a ploy or a con. She ignored every single letter. I wish Betty had responded. Her aunt wanted to leave her a slice of Manhattan worth, in those days, a few $1,000,000. Instead, the letters ceased. A firm of 9 lawyers began to squander the aunt's resources, to the point where the only person left for Violet to leave her house to was the cleaner, which she proceeded to do. It was 30 years later we discovered this snippet of information, and it was enough for Sean to go digging in New York. What he found was an appalling litany of lies and deceit. Life continued in the same vein. School from 8 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon, then home after learning pretty much nothing. Kenneth Kaunda was the president of Zambia. His nickname was KK. He was a wily old fellow who, like all African leaders, became life president. Ted knew him well, and as the top-ranking officer in that region, met him often. I came home from school one afternoon to find KK sitting at our lunch table. Not recognizing him in the flesh, I thought he was being interviewed for the job Betty advertised to do the ironing, and almost said so till Betty dragged me from the room, hissing that I must shut up and show some respect. In the center of Broken Hill stood a monument below a monstrous fig tree where the first skull of Homo sapiens had been discovered, Broken Hill Man. Behind this tree was Kuntawala's. That was an unfortunate Indian name to us lot, but the best source of bell-bottom trousers, flowery shirts, and moccasin shoes. Diagonally opposite the crossroads stood D.H. Patel's department store and other strange shops full of cheap goods, all owned by Indians. If you walked up the hill past D.H. Patel's store and turned right, there was a petrol station a couple of 100 yards up on the opposite side of the road. That was where the Rio Cafe was, a big glass-fronted place from which you could see all the goings-on of this town, plagued by kids living the 60s to the maximum. My schooling was an increasingly looming disaster. Though I wanted to be a vet, I had no aptitude for such a career, so continued to drift from one exam failure to the next. I got 2% in the French exam for getting my name right, and that's the honest truth, Your Honor. I blame myself. But I will never forget my primary influences, Dave and Barry. I still have a tape recording of our conversations whilst hitchhiking in Rhodesia. Well, not so much conversation as a litany of belches. Another regular haunt for us was Kariba Dam. During one period of my time in Broken Hill, I got involved with a religious sect who had a kind of commune a few miles out of town. There was a really pretty girl there, and it was my plan to conquer her. After dozens of attempts to woo her after a game of table tennis, I failed miserably, but did meet a really strange fellow who owned a red Volvo with Jesus Saves stickers all over it. He invited me down to Kariba for a couple of weeks. Not once did he attempt to convert me. On our way down, we ran over a small antelope. He stopped and stuck it in the boot. When we arrived at one of the small, open-to-the-elements self-catering lean-tos, we cooked it. For probably the last time you could ever do it. We drove down a small track in front of the sluice gates and walked to a massive gravel apron below the dam wall. We fished for tiger fish with lures called Zambezi aristocrats. We were just flicking our lines out and catching their amazing fish at every cast. I swear that those experiences cannot be had ever again. The final image of Dave and Barry will remain scorched on my mind forever. The last time I saw them, was at Kariba Dam. As I arrived, searching everywhere and sweaty from a long walk down the network of dirt roads, I heard a shout. There they were, waving from a wooden barrel they'd commandeered, paddling across the water with rotting planks, sinking rapidly. They only just made it, and it was the last fishing trip before we went our separate ways in life. Dave joined the BSA police and vanished. 5 years later, he died from leukemia.